We are back. It is episode 56 of the CCHA Reporters Corner. I'm one half your co-host, Garrett Raboin with the Bemidji Pioneer. With me is the better half, the co-host, Trent Singer from Sioux Falls Live. Trent, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. It is finally slowing down for me. It has been a month of just chaos. I think it was away from my house for like 2 straight weeks, covering state basketball, Augie in the semifinals, and now I'm finally settled in. I mean, I was at home this week, but at the Denny pretty much, 3 or 4 straight days covering the regionals, and it's good to just finally be able to sort of tone down. But hey, while I was at the regionals, got to meet a great college hockey mind who we actually had on the show this week, Jared.
Yeah, Trent and his ever workings of, I guess, networking. I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. But Trent met Mike McMahon, and we wanted to bring Mike McMahon on the show because we've brought other media guys on. We had Schloss on last year, obviously Ben Holden a couple of weeks ago, right? But we wanted to kind of go out east a little bit, and the reason for this was that I think the larger discussion around college hockey right now is, again, like it is every March and April, is home site regionals, and Mike's got a lot of really good insight and also some really good perspectives that I think can kind of get lost on us Westerners in college hockey in a lot of ways. Not just you and me, but I think a lot of the people that listen to the show, and that was probably about half of the discussion, Trent, was just the poking holes through some of the logistical angles of home site regionals, what regionals could look like, what they could change into, maybe even a little college hockey expansion. But yeah, it was great. Mike's before Trent kind of gives the rundown of what we went through, I don't think we did a good enough job plugging it with him, but he does a college hockey newsletter on Substack. Everybody knows who Mike is on Twitter at this point. Like, if you're not on Twitter, go just Google Mike McMahon, and I'm sure the newsletter will bring you, or it'll be right at the top of Google. But I think I said it was $8 a month, and I'm pretty sure that's right. But it's one of those charges I just don't care. Like, it's great stuff on his Substack. Multiple times a week, he does some live shows on there. One of my favorite things he does is on Monday nights, he'll bring his kids on, and they'll do like a little live show on there, and they're always streamed to Twitter too, and it's fun. I think you can really see his passion come out through college hockey in there, and but it's also really, really, really informative. And for legitimately, it's $8 a month to get actual college hockey news. Some of the groundbreaking stuff is a lot of times revealed in that newsletter. So I implore people to support local and small journalism in a lot of ways, and he is a champion of that. And I think it's, like I said, it's the best $8 I spend every month. So but Trent, what did we get into with Mike McMahon?
Yeah, we just got his general takeaways from the the regionals and how they all played out. Obviously, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Denver all advancing, the 4 programs with the most national championships. So we got his take on that. We got his take on Sioux Falls and the regional that was held here in Sioux Falls this weekend. I think over 6,000 fans in attendance for Saturday's championship game. Ended up being another smash hit for the folks at the Sioux Falls Sports Authority who put this on and have bid for this regional to come to Sioux Falls for the past, I think this is the 4th time it's been held in Sioux Falls. First one came in 2018, and I don't, as long as neutral regionals are a thing in college hockey, Sioux Falls is going to be at the center of it. It's been a great destination for a lot of teams here out west to come and play. In front of a market that people probably don't understand is really hockey craved. So we got his take on that. Mike's been covering college hockey for 2 decades now. He's covered Merrimack during that time, is a Merrimack grad, worked for the Eagle Tribune in Essex County, Massachusetts for about 6 or 7 years. And we got his take on just kind of how he got into it, real briefly. And then obviously, like Jared said, I think half of our conversation was about the home site regionals argument. I talked to Mike a little bit about it this weekend about it. And he has a really interesting perspective because he explores more of the how rather than the why. And so we got his take on that, how we can make this work. Considering the TV deal that's currently in place, between the NCAA and ESPN to broadcast these regional games and obviously exclusive rights on the Frozen Four as well. So really good insight there. And then we got some take on his take on a few other things happening across college hockey. Obviously with Bob Motzko and the job that was left open there from the parting of ways between the Gophers and Bob Motzko and Garrett Raboin, and we got his take on him ultimately kind of turning that job down and staying at Augustana and what his thoughts on that were, and then Brett Larson being named the coach. And then we also talked, a little bit of a somber story with the Mercyhurst program shutting down, and Mike's been all over that story, and so we kind of got some insight from him and maybe the bigger picture implications of that and what that entails for smaller programs in college hockey. And then we just closed out with some one-timers, man, and got his take on some of the guys he's been covering over during his time in college hockey. Some of the most talented players, one of the most underrated guys. Some fun stuff there to close it out. But an outstanding episode. And again, I want to echo what Jared said. Please subscribe to his newsletter, College Hockey Insider, on Substack. He does great work for College Hockey News as well, and just a great voice in college hockey, and a guy who really does have just such a solid understanding of so many different things that we can do in this sport to continue to grow it. And market it really to a new generation that's coming up. He's got two kids that play hockey as well, 13 and 15 years old, and it was really interesting to hear that perspective too, because that's kind of who we're trying to cater to in a lot of ways when you talk about growing the game and making it more consumable for that generation. And it's something that we probably don't even look at or consider when we talk about these things, but Mike has good perspective on it. Just from that angle. So a great chat. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one.
And I think it's when it comes to subscribing to that newsletter, while you're at it, go subscribe over to Midwest Sports Plus, where the official home of the CCHA Reporters Corner. This is Alex Micheletti makes fun of me for it every time I have to do this, but our show is going on its own. It will be exclusively on its own feed starting in the fall, maybe in the summer. Trent, we got to figure out what we're going to do this summer with the show, and definitely less regular, I'd say, not the week to week, but we do have some ideas to do some shows in the summer and stuff, but those will be exclusively on the CCHA Reporters Corner feed for audio only. For the video version, it will not be on Midco Sports Plus like the CCHA show is. It will be on Midwest Sports Plus, a forum-owned property. It will also be on Sioux Falls Live and BemidjiPioneer.com. That's where you can get the video. If you have a subscription to one, you have a subscription to all, which includes the Grand Forks Herald, Duluth News Tribune, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face, Trent. We are breaking away from the CCHA. We're right on the doorstep of breaking away from the CCHA's podcast feed for the audio only listeners. But I'm sure, Trent, when's the last time we didn't do a CCHA show? If you still want to hear us on there, we'll still be on there. But for this show specifically, it will be on its own feed exclusively in the near future. If not, this could be the last one on the CCHA show feed. So we'll figure that out in the coming weeks. But for now, let's kick it over to our interview with Mike McMahon.
All right, another episode of the CCHA Reporters Corner here this week. And we had a guy who I got the chance to get to know this week on the show. Mike McMahon joins us here all the way from out east. He has a newsletter that you guys can subscribe to, College Hockey Insider. And he also writes for College Hockey News, something he's been doing for about 20 years now. Mike, thanks for coming on the show, man. We appreciate you coming on and getting to talk a little hockey. I know this is the time of year when you, myself, Jared, Brad Schlossman, who we saw this week, are at their busiest. But we appreciate you coming on the show and just chatting about some topics that I feel like we'd like to get some insight from you from.
Cool. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's definitely the busiest time of year. That's for sure. Like the next couple of weeks are pretty hectic, and then like everybody, like I'm looking forward to taking a breath for a week, and then by the end of April, wishing it was hockey season again.
I know. It is kind of cyclical like that. When it ends, you're just like, man, now we have off season. And then you get to this doldrums in the summer where you're kind of like really ready for it to start again, just because there is that energy that it comes to. You're going out to Vegas, right? Or you head out there? Yeah.
I head out there a week from today, next Tuesday, and we'll get back. I think I have a red eye back on Saturday because it's an early national championship game. It's like 5:30 in the afternoon Eastern, so it's like it's 2:30 Pacific. So I have a red eye back to Boston on Saturday night, and I already know like Sunday I'm going to be exhausted. The whole first like a week from now, 2 weeks from now I'm going to be going. Oh, I there's a nice break, but we'll get to like right around April 20th. Probably April 25th, I'm going to be sitting there going like, okay, what am I going to do now for the next 6 months? Like,
and you get no rest either because you'll come back from the Frozen Four. You'll land in local Boston time, probably 2-3 in the morning, and you get maybe 20 hours before the transfer portal opens.
That's the thing that's going to be different this year, like where it opens later. I'm not going to lie. Like I kind of like it personally because we're not having to cover the portal and the playoffs all at the same time. It's not like you're covering the off season and the postseason all at once, which is what it's been the last couple of years. But that opening that Monday just means it's going to, I wonder how that's going to impact my feeling because the off season will actually start in the off season, at least for us. Right. As opposed to what it was before when the off season was starting in the middle of the playoffs.
Well, let's start with these regional games that just wrapped up over the weekend. Obviously, everybody knows North Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Denver, all advance. The programs that all have the most national championships, 33 combined national championships between those four programs. I guess we'll keep it as open-ended as we can. What were just your biggest takeaways from how the regionals played out, and was there anything that stood out to you just, that maybe binds them all together?
It's kind of funny. Like I thought Michigan was for real coming into the tournament. I mean, they were the number 1 seed, but like that hasn't meant much in recent years either. It really feels like the top 5 or 6 seeds all have a legitimate chance to win the national title every year. But they do look a little bit different. Like that was kind of the first takeaway I had was the way that they beat Bentley hung around with them, but the way that they beat Bentley and then the way that they hung on to beat Duluth just feels like they've got a little bit of a different feel than before. I think Ivan Kovic is giant help there. Their teams, like I even think back to like the Fantilli team that went to the Frozen Four. I think it was in Tampa. Very good. I mean, clearly, look at the guys who are on that team. Like very, very good. And their goaltending was just fine. And then it's kind of been Michigan for a number of years. Like their team's loaded and their goaltending has just been, it's not bad. It's just fine. It's acceptable. This year they've got really, really good goaltending. Arguably, I think you could make the argument that they might have the best goaltender in the Frozen Four. He's certainly up there. Johnny Hicks has been fantastic down the stretch. You can't take anything away from him. But it's and Spooner was unbelievable in the regional.
Unbelievable.
Like limping a little bit down the stretch, had just a phenomenal regional. So that's kind of high praise when you say that. But they do look like they're legitimate. They do look like they're they probably have the best case for a national title, I think, of any Michigan team in a while. So I think they're going to be hard to beat. But then it's also hard to pick against Denver. I was saying this to somebody yesterday. Like I've made it a habit to not pick against Denver in March and April because they just seem to win those games all the time. And what do you know? Here they are again back in a Frozen Four.
It does feel like for Michigan too, like there is not that anybody who if they were to win the national championship doesn't earn it, right? You have to win 4 games to get there, and a lot of times you're built off the 34 plus games you had to get there, right? But like for Michigan to have to go through Duluth, who was playing like one of the best teams in the country and took Denver to that double overtime game in the NCHC playoffs. And then, now they'll have to play Denver, the team that beat Duluth and the red hot goalie. And then if you get that, it's either North Dakota, which feels like, one of the, like on that playing field Michigan's at, or Wisconsin, who was on that playing field for much of this season, dropped back down, but has suddenly refound it. And it's like, it just seems like Michigan is up to this task time and time again down this stretch here. And like, I think the Big Ten championship game was even a little emblematic of that too, of like, all right, they had this little bit of a figured out period. They survived that push from Ohio State, and then they just put their foot on the gas, closed it out, and it looked like a Michigan team that was poised to win a national championship. But I do think you can probably go around and look at Denver, and you could say something similar. You could look at North Dakota and say something similar. And like, Wisconsin's the only real outlier here just because of how they finished the end of the season. But even then, I mean, you look at their first 4 months, they were a bona fide top 5 team in the country, and it's just been that goaltending piece. But I don't know, when you kind of look at like how these Frozen Four semifinal matchups shake out, like, what do you see on the surface of those?
Dog fights, right? I mean, it's hard to even look at them and try to figure out who's a favorite. You know, as much as I just said, I think Michigan, this is their best chance at winning a national title. Like, that first round game or that first semifinal game is going to just be a battle. I think both of them are going to be just complete battles. I mean, it's this feels like it's one of those Frozen Fours where you could get 2 overtime games in the semifinals, or just the way, because all 4 teams play so tight. You know, North Dakota just doesn't give up any shots, really. They're the second best team in the country, I think, in shot suppression. And that's when Wisconsin's playing well, that's how they play, because that's how Mike Hastings wants his teams to play. And we've seen them do that throughout the course of like the last month or so. I would say the same with Denver, and Michigan, maybe a little bit of an outlier there. They're probably the team that can kind of run and gun the most. But at the same time, like, I think we've seen Michigan win in multiple ways too, where there's been times where they look at when Ivan Kovic was out. Like, they played a different type of hockey when he was out, because I think they felt like they had to, and they didn't lose a game when he was out. So you know, they're a team that can kind of win in different ways too. So I don't think all 4 of these teams are not ones that make many mistakes. That's kind of what we've seen all year, and that's what I think is going to lead to just razor sharp margins in the Frozen Four semifinals. Like, it could just be something where it's tight, and then one team, if they make a mistake, that one play could end up meaning the difference in the game, because all 4 of them have the ability to capitalize on mistakes, but all 4 of them don't make many. So like, I don't think it's going to be very wide open. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we see some lower scoring games, just because of how well coached and how well structured all 4 teams are.
This was obviously the 4th year that Sioux Falls has hosted a regional, and you know, the crowd was great Saturday night. You were there obviously with Trent, with Schloss, Faber, Feldy, all the guys. There's a good crew down there. Big time FOMO up here in Bemidji, but just general impressions on how this Sioux Falls regional played out with the wave of North Dakota fans and everything that kind of came with it.
I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought the building was awesome. We stayed downtown. Like, the downtown area was great. We had a lot of North Dakota fans around us. We actually had 3 teams in the same hotel. So like, where we were, it was pretty active too, because Merrimack, Providence, and Quinnipiac were all in the same hotel. It was pretty active with like fans and family all kind of in the same place. So I thought it was a great spot. And then you're right. I mean, North Dakota brought the people, that's for sure. You could have had like that perfect scenario at one point. It looked like you may have been able to get that North Dakota Augustana first round game, which I think would have been like just lights out electric. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it looked like for a couple of weeks that was a possibility. I think that would have been really cool.
I can tell you this: the Sioux Falls Sports Authority people were salivating at that idea. I know from text messages that I've had with them, they were excited about the prospect of that.
I'm sure.
If Augustana would have made it, I would have been there. Mike, I graduated from Augie, so like like that. Granted, it was a basketball school when I graduated, but like like when you had that tweet about Sioux Falls, it's like, I think it was like something like my first time in Sioux Falls or something like that, and it's like, it is like probably one of the best kept secrets of the Midwest, because it doesn't feel like you're in South Dakota, like you're stereotypical South Dakota when you're in Sioux Falls, and it's an awesome place, and at its core, it's a hockey town, and I think you can kind of feel it when you get these big hockey events in there, and you could feel that even when I was going to school there, before they had a college hockey team.
Yeah, it was like I came home and said to my wife, "Now we live like 10 minutes north of Boston, so it's very congested, it's very busy, which drives me nuts sometimes." And I was like, I told her, I'm like, "Hon, I could live there. Like, there's a USHL team right next door. There's a college hockey team right in town. Like, I could. There's plenty. We had plenty of good places to go eat. Like, I could be pretty happy. like get me out of the congestion and the traffic and the noise. Like, I'd be good."
It's great.
Jared, we could find a spot for him on the forum team, right? I mean, we can work this out.
Oh God, I think about living in Sioux Falls probably once a week. I loved it there. It's my favorite restaurants are there. My favorite bars are there. Like, all my college friends still live down there. So yeah, it's the best place, man.
And with
it's
the arena
awesome.
too, like I was poking around like the arena website, like you're not going to miss out on any concerts. Like, there's plenty of shows that come in through town, and like it's.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty happy. My parents have a place up in the mountains in New Hampshire, and we go up there every once in a while. And like I said to her all the time, like, I'd be happy living here. The only problem is like there's no hockey within like an hour and a half. Like, I think UNH is like 90 minutes away. I'm like, that'd be kind of tough. Like, but other than that, like, man, just like living in the cottage up in the mountains, like, I'd be good. I don't need, just as long as I have an internet connection, I'm pretty happy.
It works for those folks up in the UP, man. It's pretty isolated out there. Obviously, they're always harping about their summers. I'm still hoping to get out there at some point. We got to touch on your career a little bit. We do this on the Reporters Corner all the time. We're going to keep it as brief as we can, but you've been covering college hockey for 2 decades now, including your time covering Merrimack for the Eagle Tribune in Essex County, Massachusetts. What's been the most rewarding part really about watching this sport grow at the collegiate level during those 20 years? I know that's a loaded question, but
yeah, no, it's way different, but like it's pretty cool, because when I started, I went to Merrimack. That's where I went to school, and I was there 02 to 06, and just on a whim, I had emailed, I think, at that. I don't think texting was big yet. You would have had to still like do the whatever it's called, like you didn't have the keypads on your phone. You would have had it would take a very long to text because you got to do it by the numbers.
Yep.
But I'd sent an email to the head coach, and I was like, "Hey, I like hockey. I've always played. Not good enough to play here, clearly, but like, is there anything I can do?" And it was funny because like within 15 minutes. I had gotten an email back like, "Hey, can you come to my office?" It was Chris Serino was a coach at the time. He's like, "Can you come to my office?" I said, "Sure." So I walked across campus, and he explained to me what he needed, which was what is now known as the director of hockey operations. It's wild to me that they had a student doing it, but that's basically what I did for 3.5 years. Like I was a 20-year-old student booking travel. I was responsible for video. I had an equipment budget, and I had to order all of our equipment. Like, I was the director of hockey operations. It was a student job, essentially, is what it was. But learned a ton doing it, because I was responsible for film. So I didn't have much. I wasn't providing a lot of input during film meetings, but at that point we weren't digital yet. It was the early 2000s. We were still on DVDs. So it was like I would, after a game, make a penalty kill DVD and a power play DVD. And then if the coaches wanted anything separate, like, "Hey, can you get me all of so-and-so's shifts?" I would have to make a DVD. I'd have to literally go through the game film, make a DVD, and then I sat at the front of the room while the 4 coaches were on the couch, and it was be like, "Hey, can you throw in the power play DVD?" Sure. And I would just throw it and hit play and get to sit there and watch and listen to those guys break down the film, and learned a ton just being able to sit in the room. I just sat in the room and was a sponge and got to listen, but it was so cool. And then after that, I wanted to stay involved in some way, but they, at the time, like, the director of hockey operations wasn't full-time jobs anywhere. It wasn't really a thing. So that didn't exist to go into. Had I gone to school like 15 years later, that's probably what I would have done. I probably could have just stayed there. Who knows? But it wasn't really a thing. So I always wanted to get into media, and through met some people through the Eagle Tribune just from being around the hockey program. They had a beat writer. His name was Kevin Conway. I got to meet Kevin, got to talk. I was talking to Kevin all the time because he was in the press box and I was doing video. So I was in the press box. And then towards the end of my senior year, he had mentioned to me that he was transitioning. He wasn't going to be a writer anymore. He was going to be a layout editor. So he wasn't going to be around as much. So I knew they had an opening at the Tribune. And I kind of just pestered the sports editor for a few months. I would email him and not get a response. And then I would email him and not get a response a few weeks later. And I finally decided, I kind of got a little annoyed by it. And I was like, look, I can take no. Like, I can't take not getting a response, but like, I'm a big boy. You can tell me no if you're not hiring anybody.
Right.
And I just finally decided I'm going to email this guy like every 2 days until he gets back to me. And I spent about like 3 weeks of every other day, like, hey, just following up. Hey, just following up. Hey, just following up. And then finally he emailed me back and he was like, can you meet me tomorrow? And so I went in and met with him tomorrow, and he was like, I don't know who you are, but like, you won't leave me alone. So clearly this is something you want to do. And they initially hired me at part-time just to cover Merrimack. They were like, our Merrimack guy is moving a layout. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they were like, we can't hire anybody full-time yet, but they hired me part-time just to cover Merrimack. That lasted about 6 months. And then I was full-time there for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years after that. So that's how I got into it. But it was so interesting to watch it. And then I knew Adam too from College Hockey News, so I started working with him really right out of college. And then started the newsletter during COVID just kind of on a whim because I was bored. And because there was nothing going on. And
right.
And that's kind of blown up, which has been crazy. But it's been interesting because like a lot of the stuff that we do now, like even like us sitting here right now having this conversation didn't exist when I first started covering hockey, right?
For
like
sure.
I kind of did some podcasts, but it was like I remember interviewing some people and holding my phone on speakerphone with like a digital audio recorder up to the thing, and then trying to post the audio file. Like it's so much different than it is now, but like it's also cool because we can sit here and do this. We couldn't have done this 20 years ago. Like this didn't exist.
When you got to Merrimack, like obviously you graduate high school or whatever, you pick a college, you go to Merrimack, like you said you liked hockey, you played hockey growing up and stuff, and you wanted to get into media, but was hockey media always the goal, or were there other sports that you could have gravitated towards, like maybe in this kind of capacity?
Hockey is always what I gravitated to, but I think at that point, like I would have taken anything.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it, right? But hockey is always what I gravitated to. Like we're a big hockey family. Ironically enough, like my dad never played. Like he played pickup with his friends, but he never played. But he was always hockey fans. Like he had, he doesn't have them anymore because the prices skyrocketed. But at the time he had split Bruins season tickets with somebody. So like him and I would go to like 25 Bruins games a year, which was really cool. And it's always just kind of been like our sport. So hockey and baseball, like those are my two things for sure. Like I like everything, but hockey and baseball was what I played. So like I probably would have tried to push in one of those two directions, but hockey was definitely first on the list.
Sox fan too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Fun.
Not a great start so far for them, but it's early.
Oh, I'm a Twins.
Jared's a Twins fan, so
yeah. I don't want to hear about good and bad starts right now.
I know. Nobody feels bad when I say that. They're like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah. Nobody really feels bad, and I can get it. I understand.
Let's swing it back to college hockey, though, right? I think when you kind of look at the sticking point right now, or I guess the big discussion topic coming out of the regionals, and it's like a yearly thing now, but it is home site regionals, and it's almost an exhausting topic for a lot of reasons now, because it doesn't feel like for the past 2 years anybody's brought anything new to the table. It's just more like rallying people to one side or another, like apathetic people to one side or another, because but let's get your take on it, right? Because I mean, I think it always goes back to the phrase rooted in growing the game, and I think there can be a lot of changes that could make a more captivating product, but obviously there's some hurdles there with TV deals and everything that kind of comes with that. So just let's start with your perspective on it, where they're at now, and what do you see as the best plan going forward?
All right.
It's a loaded question.
No, but I love this. So people think I'm against home site regionals, and I'm not. I just think the conversation needs to start with, what would ESPN do? Because when I say that, people go, well, just take it off ESPN. You can't. Okay, like that's not going to happen. It's part of that larger championship package. They're not going to separate it out. I know people like to rip on ESPN, but that's not going to happen. They have the television contract, and that's not changing. At least not for the near future. I don't know how long that deal is, but I think they just re-upped it recently.
It was 8 years. I think it runs through 2030.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not changing anytime soon.
Yep.
So if ESPN is not going to be willing to cover 8 sites with a week's notice, basically, that to me is where I think we have to sit there and go, well, that's not growing anything. Like doing games on campus that are not on ESPN, to me, is not great. Or that doesn't. I think it's important to keep a national television feel, right? I'm not saying every game needs to be on ESPN2 or on linear television, because most people have access to streaming at this point. I think ESPN Plus is actually in more homes than ESPN2. Somebody told me that over the weekend.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so it's like people freak out sometimes just about the linear television. I don't think you need that. I just think you need everything on an ESPN platform, and you need it to feel like a national television broadcast. Like I do color for the Merrimack broadcast on ESPN Plus. I say this as someone who does I guess you'd call it home team broadcast. I don't want that to be the broadcast for the national tournament. It needs to feel different. It needs to feel like a national broadcast. So if they're not willing to send 8 crews to 8 different places, I think that's really hard to go with the 8 home site regionals. If they are, let's try it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're willing to do that, then let's go. I just don't know that they're going to be willing to do that, because I don't know that they make money on the hockey tournament as it is. I mean, people were complaining over the weekend because it was bumped or bumped to ESPNU because of baseball, and it's like, it pains me to say it because I'm a college hockey guy, but whatever that regular season college baseball game was is going to make them more money. It's going to draw more people. That's just the reality. That's why the national championship game's at 5:30 Eastern in the afternoon on that Saturday. I think they've got like a college game that night, or a college baseball game that night. So I'm fine with trying home site regionals if it still has a national television component to it, because I think if you lose that, I don't think that really helps grow your game. I think I don't want these to feel like regular season games. And that would be my biggest concern. That being said, the NCAA continues to shoot itself in the foot when it comes to the neutral sites, which drives me nuts, because they're insistent on keeping it, at least for now. Like I'm willing to bet we probably hear this spring or early this summer about the next round of neutral site regionals, because they put them out to bid. I know they put them out to bid because other schools like New Hampshire, UNH has told me they have not bid to host in Manchester again. So there's a bid process that's out there right now, which probably would take them through, I think the last one was a 4-year cycle, and it goes through 28, so that might take them through 32, roughly. I'm guessing maybe they do a 2-year cycle, it brings to 30. But they want to keep the status quo. Fine. I think though there's changes they can make that they're just common sense things to me that would make an overall better product. First and foremost, stop playing games at 1:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. I don't care who you are. Like, again, because of streaming, everyone has the ability to watch whatever game they want. I don't care if they're going up against each other. I know there's more teams. The basketball tournament is 4 games playing at a time for like 2 weeks straight. It's fine, right? Stop playing games at 1, because nobody goes, especially if with the off day in between. Less people travel if your team is traveling, because it's a harder travel day. Now, it's not back-to-back games. You're only gone for 2 days. And so you have less people to travel. You're also going to have less locals that go if you're playing at 1:30 in the afternoon, because people are in school, kids are at school, people got to work. I would the first thing I would do is make all the games later in the day. If you've got 2 games in a day, I get it. You're going to have to probably start the first one at 5 p.m., whatever local time is for that region. But 5 and 8, 5 and 8:30, like get the games on later in the day where people can actually go. And then the other thing I would say is they have that rule where you can't bid to host in your home building, and I just don't understand that. And there's a lack of venues available in the Midwest, clearly. And to all the venues that could host, like most of the venues that could host are college hockey buildings. To me, it makes no sense that Denver has to host in Loveland and they can't just host in Magnus. They can very capably host 4 teams there. That's the biggest thing from what I've understood from people have said to me. It's not like the arena size. That's important. It's more about, do they have the space underneath to house 4 teams at once? Are there 4 different locker rooms? Is there enough room for those 4 teams to live in the building? It makes no sense that Denver has to host in Loveland. It makes no sense that North Dakota has to host in Fargo, like when Engelstad could clearly, I mean, they can accommodate 4 teams just fine. I just think that would open up so many more buildings. Like all the Big Ten schools would have no issue hosting. They could bid to host in their home building. And I think you'd get more teams that are willing to host if that were the case, because they don't have to incur the expense of renting a facility, which is expensive. And then you've got to guarantee the NCAA some money on top of that. I think that was one of the issues with UNH. They were like, we were doing all this work. We had to rent out the arena in Manchester. The NCAA guarantee was like $100,000, whatever it was. And they were like, by the time we rented the building and staffed the building and had our staff run the regional and spend 6 months planning for it, they broke even. So it's like, why are we doing all this work to break even? Whereas if you can host in your home building and you're not spending, I mean, I don't know what the rent costs. I'm guessing $50,000, $75,000 a day to rent those buildings from Wednesday to Sunday or Wednesday to like, all of a sudden, I think you'd have a lot more schools willing to host if they don't have that $400,000 to $500,000 expense, right? So those are just things I think you could do that you could easily do, and I think it would make the environment better. I think it would open up more possibilities for hosts. And then the last one, I like this one a lot, but I will say that this is probably the one that I think has the least chance of happening. I look at it through the lens. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old who both play hockey. If they are not in an arena, getting them to sit down and watch a full game is difficult, and they both play. There's just too many other tracks, right? They sit like this the whole time.
Yeah.
I went to the game in Worcester on Saturday after I got back. They came with me. I got them tickets. They sat and watched that game because they were in the building. But what they do watch is I forget what it's called. ESPN does that like Red Zone style show every once in a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The On the Fly or something.
Yeah, like
no, that's NHL Network.
Yeah.
The Frozen Frenzy. Yeah. That's what
they sat and watched that for 3.5 hours. So
really,
yeah, because it's quick. Because to me, like I asked my 16-year-old, and he's like, "Well," he goes, "That's more of a TikTok experience because it's like boom, breaking into different games like that." They watch highlights. That's what they're used to.
Yeah.
So, like what I would like to see them try, because I think for a younger audience, it would do well. Is I would take your linear television spot on ESPN2 and
put it on that.
You already got the people in studio anyway. Put the people in studio, play all the games in prime time, and you can sit there and go, okay, in Sioux Falls, North Dakota's going to go on a power play. We're going to head out there next, show the North Dakota power play. Oh, you missed a goal here in Worcester, blah, blah, blah. And then stream all the games in their entirety on ESPN+. So if you're a fan of North Dakota and you wanted to watch the North Dakota game, you could go watch the whole North Dakota game. You could do that.
I love this.
If you kind of wanted to watch
which
everything
they're already
else,
doing, like that's already something that they're doing.
Exactly.
Like even with the regionals championship games this weekend, all the first one would always bleed into the second one. Yep. You got to pull it up on the streaming service. So you're like, who's going to ESPN News now to catch the start of the second game, right? Everybody's pulling it up on their phone or their computer, or if they're doing streaming on their TV, they're already doing that.
Yeah.
God, so I feel like an old head because I definitely flipped to ESPN News. So
sorry to date you.
I'm not even sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm not even sure if I have ESPN News. I'd have to look. I probably
comes in a YouTube TV package. I just flipped over to it, watched it. People were complaining to me on Twitter about it, and I'm like, it was easy for me.
Yeah, we have Hulu with live TV. I'm sure I have it because it's a Disney owns everything.
Yeah.
But it was like I'd like to see them try that, just because I think we talk about growing the audience and growing like that's. I see it with at least with my kids, and it's a very small sample size. I just have two, but like those are what two hockey teenage playing boys I think would sit down and watch for 4 hours, because it's a lot more quick. One and in and out. Go to this. Go to this. Go to this. If nothing's happening, go into the studio. Okay, like let's recap what we just saw here. Throw to an interview. Okay, the first period just ended in Worcester. We're going to go talk to this coach or this player. You can kind of whip around and do everything. And if you put that on TV, I don't know what you call it, NCAA tournament frenzy. That doesn't roll off the tongue, but come up with a catchy name, get the marketing people on it, and I think that could actually get some younger people watching it, just because it's more what they're used to watching. Like they don't watch TV.
Catered to them. Yeah.
Yeah, like my kids don't watch TV. They watch their phone. Even when they watch TV, they watch YouTube on TV.
Right.
That's what they watch.
Yeah.
Mike, when on the, to go back to the, the 116, the 215, 8 regional sites, like you said, and the challenges that come with having that national broadcast feel in 8 different barns. Obviously, that's like an unintended consequence now, is that you would sacrifice that national feel of a national tournament. Are there other unintended consequences that you kind of see are lost on the public? Because you can go on Twitter right now and see 10,000 tweets of NCAA stupid. Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing this? And it's, granted, it's people on Twitter, so you know what you've come to expect with it. But at the same time, it's like there's got to be more unintended consequences in the way that the larger public is either unaware of or outright ignoring.
Yeah, I wonder, like, I don't know if this would be a big, I mean, I guess it would depend on the year, but what happens from a travel perspective? Because right now, even though I'll use Sioux Falls as the example, they didn't know which 4 teams were going to Sioux Falls, but they knew 4 teams were going. So they could block hotels. I think from like a charter plane standpoint, they had planes ready to go. And that I feel like the plane thing might actually be the easiest thing to solve. But with some of these places, like that's the one where I think people have said, well, what if just the top 4 seeds host it? Well, first of all, not every building is capable of hosting 4 teams, but not every town is capable of like, can you imagine finding out, like, okay, where you find out Saturday night, we're the 4 seed, we're hosting a regional that starts on Thursday. We have 4 hockey teams that are coming in on Tuesday. And now we've got to scramble and figure out hotel accommodations for all these extra teams, and where, I don't know, it's like some of these places could be small towns. Like, what, are you going to have a team staying an hour away? Like, I think it's like those travel logistics are hard for them to figure out. I think that's why the NCAA prefers the regionals, because at least they know in advance, we don't know who's coming, but we can block these rooms. ESPN, we don't know who's going to be there, but we can block out our crews and where they're going. All that pre-planning gets done, and you don't have to do that within 48 hours. I know, like, just from a logistical team standpoint, how much of a scramble it was for the people at Merrimack over the week. Like, they won Hockey East on Saturday night, and then they found out, okay, we're leaving Tuesday morning to go to Sioux Falls. But they didn't know they were going to Sioux Falls until the afternoon on Sunday. They didn't, like, the teams don't get a heads up there. So they had about 24 hours to pull together a travel party, and that's with some stuff already planned. Like, they had a hotel block. The NCAA was like, you'll have a plane in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is where they flew out of. And it was still difficult to pull all that together. So, like, the travel logistics, to me, I think are the biggest thing that people don't think about. And especially, like, you might know some of the sites ahead of time. The top 8, like, you may know, okay, the top 4 are pretty settled, top 5 are pretty settled. But it might be a situation where, like, that 6, 7, 8 band is not decided until championship weekend. And now all of a sudden those teams have to host. And what about, I don't know how it is in every building, but like some buildings are not managed by the teams. They share it with other teams, or like I know at BU, Agganis Arena is a Live Nation building. So like Live Nation's not going to go, well, we're going to hold that weekend in case BU has a home game and not book Disney on Ice or whoever else is coming in there, right? So I think that makes it hard too. Like, it's easy for the teams that completely own and run their own building, but for the ones that don't, that could be difficult because now you're trying to block out weekends where you might be playing, you might not be playing, you don't know. I think those are the things that they're concerned with the most.
Here's something that I've kind of been thinking about over the past, I don't know, however many days I've been sitting in Bemidji watching college hockey since the Beeve season ended. But I do kind of like the idea of the top 4 seeds hosting and keeping, like, if that's the only change, right? Because I do think there is a change that needs to be made. I think if you can't do the 1 through 8 for all the logistical issues, I like the idea of, hey, let college teams and college barns host these regionals. Like the fact that Minnesota has not hosted a regional in over a decade, despite producing the most amount of college hockey players in the country, is mind-numbingly stupid to me.
Yeah,
but
completely agree.
Right, like, let's say this change isn't going to happen overnight, and it's not going to look like the how I think the majority of people want it to be. But what if we do the format stays the same and the high seeds host, but then we just delay the tournament by 1 week instead of the gap in between the regionals and the Frozen Four. You bump it back a week, give all 16 teams an extra week of practice, an extra week to heal. True, then you're getting better product on the ice. If Michael Hage would have played against Bentley, if that would have happened, presumably, right? And then it sorts out the travel, because the Frozen Four is always going to be neutral site, and from there the teams that make it, it's just flights to Vegas or flights to Tampa or flights to wherever. But if you gave them 10 days instead of 3 days to figure this out, maybe that's a logistical hurdle. And then, and then you think of, right, like there are some teams that can't host. Like I think of like Mankato 4 years ago when they were, they would have been the 1 seed. Maybe that's a bar. Like I think they probably could. Like they have a decent sized rink. It's a town of 80,000 people. There's plenty of places to stay. But pretend it's a town of 20,000 people, like Bemidji is, and it would have been a logistical hurdle then. Could it not just be an issue where it's like, say Mankato just plays it at the Axel Energy Center or Grand Casino Arena, and they could work it out? Like that's their problem to figure. It's their regional to host. They can figure out wherever they want to host it. They just have to meet certain NCAA guidelines to host it. Is that potentially a route?
I mean, that would be better. I think delaying a week would make it easier to do that. I wonder, like, it would probably depend on the situation. You just don't know, like, how easy would it be for them to find another place if they needed to on such short notice? There's enough places around, though, where I don't think that would be much of an issue. There's obviously the cost standpoint part of it, too, but it all depends. I mean, you could also play with some stuff, too, and say, well, you know what, we've got that day off in between now. Do you start to play with stuff and going, maybe we don't host? I don't know if the competition committee would be on board with this, but could you play, instead of 2 games in one building the same day, could you just break them up, right? Could you do something where you play Wednesday semifinal, Thursday semifinal, Friday off, Saturday final, so that one team's not playing back to back? One team would get 2 days off, one team would get 1 day off. But like, could you do something like that? And then you could actually move teams in and out of the buildings so that you're only hosting 2 at a time and not 4 at a time. Maybe that's a possibility. Like I think there's ways you could make it work on both sides. I think, and I've been under nothing's been announced, but I've been under the impression that they may make some changes to the current format. I don't think it's going to be, we're going to host, like the top 4 seeds are going to host. Because I know they're still bidding out neutral sites for the next cycle. But at a press conference last year during the Frozen Four, I had asked a question. They do something called like the State of College Hockey press conference, where like College Hockey Inc. is up there and some people from the committee are up there. And I had asked a question about hosting in home buildings. Like, why can't Minnesota bid to host at Mariucci? Like, can someone give me an answer for that? And I didn't really get an answer to that question, other than someone had said, and I forget who it was, but somebody had basically said, like, well, we're looking into some things. We might have something for you on that in the next round. So I'm wondering, and nobody's confirmed it for me, but I wonder if they are allowing teams to bid to host like in their home buildings if it's capable of hosting. That could be one step towards getting games on campus. At least, yes, it would still be through a bid process, but at least the teams it can host on campus can host. Like, that to me might be a nice middle ground, because the teams that can host on campus can host on campus. That's fine. If you bid to host it, you host it. And the NCAA can know ahead of time to still get their logistics planned out. That might be like a nice middle ground. It doesn't solve the issue that some people want to solve, where, well, what happens? Why does a 4 seed get a home game?
Yeah.
It doesn't solve that issue entirely. I don't know if they can solve that issue entirely unless they just went to top seeds host or something like that. Right. I actually think too, like, this is a separate conversation, but I think they're getting close to, at least in my opinion, I don't know that they're talking about this, just in my opinion, they're getting close to, it's probably time to expand it a little bit. Not crazy. I don't think you got to go to 32 teams, but like,
right.
Is there a way to go to 20? Is there a way to go to 24?
24 makes kind of the most sense to me in terms of the bracket format. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had some, like Mike Cavanaugh at UConn said it to me 2 weeks ago. He was like, we're the one sport where the 24 ranked team could win the tournament. Like in basketball, like whoever's 24th in the net rankings probably doesn't have a realistic shot at winning the national championship, right? And look, the 24th ranked team was not going to be the favorite in the hockey tournament, but he was like, the teams in the top 20, all of them in the top 20 could win 4 games in a row and win the national title. And he's like, we're kind of unique in that. Like, we're one. So he's been pushing to expand it, and I don't think he's alone. I think there's some other coaches that are starting to get on board with that. So I wonder if that's coming in the next couple of years.
Can I throw out a hurdle then? Because I like, that sounds great in theory, right? I love the idea of more teams making this tournament. I want more games. Like I get out of this weekend and I'm like, it's a great weekend of hockey, and it's a quarter of the amount of games you usually get on a given weekend, it feels like. So, but with ESPN owning the rights to NHL playoffs, and the expansion for college hockey would inevitably push the season back probably at least another weekend. Now you're running into the problem of conflicting ESPN hockey properties, one potentially taking away from the other. Is that a wrinkle in this as well, of ESPN not wanting these two entities to cross over with each other on its network?
Potentially. Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, right? Because we are pushing right up against it, and you don't want the Frozen Four running into the first round of the NHL playoffs. So I think if they were to do it, they'd have to, I think, find a way to keep the timeline the same, which probably means taking out that bye week.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's one of the proposals I've heard from some coaches, and I forget, I've got it written down somewhere, but it was essentially like a combination of campus and regional and neutral sites, where that first round, the top seeds hosted, but only hosted one game. So like, your first round was not 4 teams going to one spot. It was one team going. So like 24 would go, it wasn't one hosting 24. I wonder if the top seeds got a bye or something. I forget exactly the format, but because it wouldn't work out. Or maybe, whatever the case was, it was single games on campus in the first round. And then the following weekend, 2 super regionals, right? It actually may have been 1 through 24, like 1 hosting 24, 2 23, and that got you down to 12 teams. And then it may have been 2 16. The proposal someone gave me may have been 2 6-team regionals, where like the top 4, like there was the lowest 2 remaining seeds in those regionals had to play like a play-in game to get in, and then like the top 3 had a bye, or whatever the math works out. But
yeah,
it was kind of a combination of, it gets us some games on campus. It's less neutral sites that we have to go to, because you host like 2 super regionals instead of 4 smaller ones. And you could easily split it up. 1 in the East, 1 in the West, right? You could do Fargo and Worcester, and you could do Sioux Falls and Allentown, right? And I kind of like that, because I thought it was a nice middle ground where you get a little bit of both. The NCAA still gets to keep its neutral sites. The people that want campus sites get the first round on campus. And I think too, like, if you've got 6 or 8 teams, whatever it was, go into those super regionals, Those buildings for the neutral sites are going to be a little fuller because you've got more people that are traveling to them. 4 teams there. You got 6 or 8 teams going there. So and it expands the tournament, which I agree with you. I want more games. I want more regular season games. I'd say cut out the month off of Christmas and play like 38 games instead of 34. So I know that there is some momentum towards that. I don't know. Naples will be interesting this spring to see if the coaches really push for that and who's for it and who's against it. But I know there are some coaches that want both. They want more regular season games and they want to expand the tournament to 20 or 24 teams.
I think it's important that we talked about these unintended consequences. We got Cordell in here, our producer, and for anybody locally, listen to Monday's episode of Happy Hour with John Gaskins, because he had Jerry Palesci on. It was a super insightful interview to hear from the Sioux Falls Sports Authority as to how much planning goes into this for Sioux Falls, and there's a lot, man. I mean, you talk about the scheduling aspect of this; it's massive. And it's a big undertaking. We got coaches that, I mean, it's been known that there's a lot of coaches that are for the idea of home site regionals. David Carl has been ranting about it on Twitter here for the past couple days too. So the conversation is coming back up.
That charge.
He really is. But it's and to me, that's a big piece though, right? Because we know that coaches all agree with it, but for the biggest coach in college hockey to be championing this movement kind of now, the way that he has been, just whether it's through his press conferences or just on Twitter. I mean, he's, that's a big thing. And when you talk about finding ways to make this work, I think expanding the tournament seems like the very inevitable, in a lot of ways, first step to finding a solution here, a middle ground. And I wrote in my column I wrote Saturday night was more so about, we need to stop asking why and start asking how. And I feel like in some of the conversations, Mike, you and I were having over the weekend too about this, was more so geared towards the how rather than the why, because I think right now it's a general consensus among all of us that, this is something that just needs to be done. It's just finding a way to do it, right? Like, how do we get there? And it's an important conversation to be having. We want to touch on a couple more topics though across college hockey. We'll move off of the home site regional stuff, at least for now. First off, obviously one of college hockey's blue blood programs had an opening that was filled last week. Brett Larson goes from St. Cloud State to take over the job at the University of Minnesota, where Bob Motzko was there for 8 years. One name that kept coming up during that stretch, we'll keep this a little CCHA centric, was Garrett Raboin here at Augustana. And obviously Rabs, ultimately decided to stay in Sioux Falls. It was a decision that he kind of made collectively within his family. But what was your reaction to hearing that he had decided not to pursue the Gophers job? And what was your biggest takeaway from that?
I think it says a lot about Augustana, right? Like, for sure. The first of all, the work that they've done there, but also I remember, when they joined the league, I know a couple of coaches at Bowling Green, and they were like that school's going to be a problem for us pretty quickly because they're going to build that arena. They've got a good coach, and they're going to be able to invest. And I think that's what stood out to me the most is not only he's got to be happy just living where he's living from a family standpoint, but also he's got confidence that the program's going in the right direction, that the school's going to invest in it. That's huge. That's huge. Institutional support is not something we talk about enough, and the schools that have it do well, and the schools that don't have it are the ones that typically struggle. So I think it says a lot about just their institutional support of the program that he was, because Minnesota can probably, from a budget standpoint, blow them out of the water, right? They're a Big Ten school. They can blow most teams out of the water. But he's very confident with what they have there that they're going to be successful now and in the long term. And from what he's done so far, he's kind of in a position where he can stay there as long as he wants.
Right.
Unless things really go south, he could retire. He could coach there for another 30 years and retire if he wants to. That's kind of the path that he has set himself up on there, because he's done such a good job right away, and the school's right behind him. So I was a little bit surprised, just because I'm sure Minnesota could have done could have increased his salary, but that's not what it's all about either. Some guys are like, you know what, I'm happy where I'm at, and we're going to be successful here, and this is where I want to be. And I think it says a lot about Augustana to be able to, they've got something going there that he didn't want to leave. He wanted to still be a part of it.
Well, a little deja vu with the man that they named, plucking from the St. Cloud State ranks and bringing in a coach in Brett Larson. I think leading up to this, there was so much chatter about we see it all the time, I think, out here. Maybe it's just the way our algorithms are tuned, but Gophers fans were not excited about Brett Larson being named the coach. Now, when he's named the coach, it's really interesting because the conversation pivots a lot. And I think there's a respect across college hockey from a lot of coaches that think that Brett Larson can do a really good thing here at Minnesota. And so I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on, Brett Larson just taking over that job?
I think I'm in the camp of thinking he's going to do really well. I mean, this is a guy that's won some national championships at Duluth. I know like the knock was kind of, well, look at what the St. Cloud record has been over the last couple of years, and they've dipped, right? But again, you talk about institutional support, like they're also a school that's having a lot of budget issues, I think they're cutting programs, and when I put something out about that, I don't know if it was in the newsletter or if I put it on Twitter, and somebody was like, well, they're doing work to the arena right now. They are, but the first phase of that is like just general maintenance, and the arena is a revenue generating thing for the school. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're not going to let it just decay because it generates revenue for the school. So, and it's like ice surface stuff they have to do. So, I think you can kind of line up the downfall is the wrong word, but the dip in St. Cloud hockey, along with it kind of lines up in the same timeline of, well, now revenue sharing has become a thing, and NIL has become a bigger thing, and you've got to pay these players. And at the same time, St. Cloud's having a lot of budget issues, and their enrollment's down, and there seems to be less money there. So I don't think that's an accident. Like, I think that is played as much of a role as anything. So I think you look at what Larson did when he first got there, and he kept the train rolling. Like, they didn't skip a beat, and right. So I think if you put him with his experience at Minnesota with a bigger budget, because they're going to have it, I think he's going to do really well. I think he's a really good coach. So I think he's going to do just fine.
I get a kind of a firsthand look at this every year because Bemidji State has that, rolling home and home with St. Cloud State every year. And obviously one's in the NCHC, one's in the CCHA, but the two programs are in very similar positions in a lot of ways. Like, the institutional support isn't quite there as much as, some other teams in their conference, right? Like, it's just the reality of being a state school in Minnesota that is D2 with D1 hockey right now. But it's beyond impressive to me how capable he was at reloading at St. Cloud State, given those hurdles. You see teams in the NCHC, and the resources and the flexibility they have that keep staying on that level or taking that slight trajectory forward, and in St. Cloud State, it almost looks like it's going down. But then you start to realize, okay, like, you got to replace 10 players every year. 5 of them are going to portal. Right.
Like competing with North Dakota and Denver and Western.
Yeah.
Right. Kids are going to portal. Kids are going to sign early. Like, look at all the kids who have signed early out of St. Cloud State over the past 3 or 4 years. And there's the dip only goes so far as maybe a season like last season where you're a handful of games under 500, but you're still the team that nobody in the NCHC wants to play in February when you're trying to lock up an MPI spot or a pairwise spot at the time.
And what would have happened last year too, by the way, if Isaac Posh didn't get hurt?
Correct. Like, that's the craziest part of all of this.
He missed like half the season and was on fire in the first half of the year.
Yeah.
He was goaltending, no offense to those other guys, but like, the numbers are the numbers. The goaltending dipped when he was out of the line.
It wasn't even like a debate he was going to be a top 3 Richter finalist from that first half, and if not, win it. And so whatever, he signs with Colorado, and they found 2 goalies. Like, they found 2 very capable, good goalies that got them a hell of a lot of wins that they shouldn't have gotten this year. And, you find kids like Tyson Gross, and like Austin Bernovic is one of my favorite players in college hockey. Obviously he's like a 2nd round pick, but it's like, he has kept him in St. Cloud playing on Olympic ice and in a deteriorating rink, like you said. And I can't imagine how much of a breath of fresh air it is for Brett Larson to walk into Mariucci and be like, holy cow, like this is the situation I get to be in. And that's, that doesn't mean that St. Cloud State's a bad spot to be in. I mean, there's a passionate fan base it's the only sport at the school that, is really cared about on like a local level, like from a broad perspective. Like they don't have football anymore. And I think you see the budget issues of cutting football 7 or 8 years ago. Like that's where you start to see it now, when the declining enrollment, football, even on a D2 level, even here in Bemidji, is still a money-making sport. And it's money that they don't have from that. And it's fascinating. I do think though that it's still a place you can win and get back to that level. You just need a little bit more juice with it.
Yep. Yeah. And I know like this is nobody likes to talk about this, and everyone, like, especially like I do our CHN show with Adam Woden, and he, I joke with him now, he's like the grumpy old man shouting at the clouds when it comes to the money part of it. But like in the NCHC, he's going up against teams that have rev share budgets that I'm guessing like at the top level of the league. St. Cloud and Miami don't have this, but Denver, North Dakota, probably Western coming up into it now. Like they're probably spending $500,000 to $700,000 a year on players.
Easy.
St. Cloud doesn't have that, and it's interesting because everyone says it's not the same amount of money that they're spending in football and basketball, which is true. Like you see football, like quarterbacks are getting paid $7 or $8 million, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not the same. The money's not the same, but it still matters. And I think it's a situation where I've had some conversations with coaches who have said, you know what, like hockey's interesting because it's an expensive sport to play. So most of the families that have kids that advance to the point where they're playing college hockey, not all, but a lot of them are not in the position where they need the extra $30,000, let's say, right? Like the free education's enough, right? But it becomes a status thing to some of these kids too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, he's getting 35. I'm better than he is. Like I should be getting at least 50. And they all talk to each other. They all know what they're getting. So it's kind of like NHL free agency where it's like, yeah, I might not need the 30 grand, but I'm better than you and you're getting 30. So I should be getting 40. I'm better than this. Like, that's kind of what it is. Like,
yeah.
And that's why some teams, I know, like, I think I haven't talked to anybody there, but I think Michigan State is like this, where it's kind of tiered. It's like either everyone's getting the same, or it's one of these like freshmen get X, sophomores get a little bit more. I think Colorado College is doing something similar, where it's like there's like a retention bonus built in, so you get so much as a freshman, so much as a sophomore, and I
believe Denver is the same too. Something similar to that as well, where it's an equal share or some sort of a sharing system.
And I think that's why most schools are doing that. Like we had Chris Mayotte on our CHN show a couple of weeks ago, and his point was like, the more you invest in Colorado College, the more we are going to invest in you. So like the seniors will be paid the most, and I think that's a smart way to do it, because it kind of takes that element of, well, this guy's getting all of our money and I'm better than he is. Like some of the infighting that can happen in the locker room, it does take that out of it. But like from a recruiting standpoint, if you're being recruited by Denver and St. Cloud, and Denver's offering you $40,000 and St. Cloud is offering you a scholarship, which is great. But you're looking at it and going, I'm better than those guys. Like I should be getting the same. Like it does play a role. It absolutely plays a role in recruiting, and that makes it harder for teams like St. Cloud. I don't think there's any doubt.
Kirk Cousins said it best when he was going to re-sign with the Vikings. It's not about the money; it's about what the money represents. And I'm thankful he did not take what the money represents in Minnesota for a third time. So that's so everybody wins. Yeah.
No, but that's a great quote. It's exactly right. It's not about the money, because it's about what it represents. And you got kids that are like looking at it like it's NHL free agency and looking at like agents. I know of agents that are literally looking at player comps. Like I have this client at this school who's making this, so that means this one should be making this, and like it's free agency is what it has turned into.
I try to stay young, man, but I feel like such an old man when I watch some of this stuff happening now. I'm like, what is happening?
It's nuts. And I've said to both my kids, I'm like, hey, if you have an opportunity to go play a sport in college and we don't have to pay for you to go to school, home run. Like, like give me that all day long. Like, I don't care if you get any rev share at all. I'll give you spending money. If I don't have to pay for school, like if I don't have to pay for school, I'll buy you a car. Like any car you want, it's going to be cheaper than sending you to school. Like, like let's go. It's nuts.
I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer here. A tough story though came out this week with Mercyhurst and discontinuing its hockey program. I know there's a petition out to pause it, raise some funds, stuff like that. But obviously, Rick Gotkin, 38 years, 29 at Division I level. You've been pretty locked in on this story on your newsletter. I wait for the notification to pop up every day so I can open Substack. But just what can you tell us about this decision and why it caught so many people off guard?
Yeah, nobody knew. Well, nobody in hockey knew. I'm sure the school knew a while before the decision was made. I don't think that's something that they woke up on Friday morning and decided we're going to cut our team. But like we saw Rick Gotkin in Sioux Falls on Thursday night. Mm-hmm. He was on the men's ice hockey committee and he was there as the rep. And Thursday night I said hello and he was his normal, hey, how you doing? Like happy to see everybody self. And I haven't talked to Rick about this. I've talked to some other people who said that Rick did not know until about 5 minutes before the press release went up online. Because the first thing I thought of Friday morning was like, wow, he hid that really well on Thursday. And he didn't hide anything. I don't think he knew. So my understanding is that nobody knew, like nobody within hockey knew that they were going to do this. The school at the administrative level, I think board of trustees, president of the school, they were looking for things to cut. They cut hockey and they cut a bunch of academic programs at the same time. I always chuckle at these releases too, because it's like, we're making these moves for the long-term viability of the college. And then 3 paragraphs down, they talk about how much success they're having as a school. Well, clearly not, because you're cutting a bunch of academic programs and athletic programs. Like you can't say that you're financially healthy while also making these cuts. Clearly it's one or the other. So I don't know. I don't have total specifics on this. I've talked to some players. I've talked to some parents of players who have reached out to me. They told the players on Friday morning, not the person that made the decision. The person that made the decision was not the one who told the players. The president of the school sent someone else to tell the players.
Oof.
Which to me, like, I've said this to a few people now, like, there's no good way to handle these situations, but it feels like the people at Mercyhurst went into ChatGPT and said, what is the worst way that we could handle this? And then followed the step-by-step guide. Like, if you're going to make that decision, right, as a president, to me, like, you just got to be a little more accountable than that. You got to go in the locker room and you got to face those kids and you got to say, look, we're very sorry. This is what we're doing. The players had no idea until that point. From what I understand, people around the program did not even know that this was being discussed. Like, when they found out Friday morning is when they found out that this was even on the table. They hired Rick Gotkin's replacement, who's retiring. They hired Tom Piffle. They promoted him to the head coach of winning a year ago. It was like last April. Actually, less than a year, like 11 months ago.
Yeah.
So clearly everybody thought that the program was going to continue. Otherwise, why are you naming a head coach in waiting? You could have just said, Rick's got one more year and then we're folding up the program, right? You could have done that, but that's not what they did. So the players were told they're going to honor their scholarships, which I think they technically have to do. And let's be honest, like that's the least they can do.
Right.
Yeah.
The issue is like most of those players, this probably means the end of Division I hockey for the majority of those players. I think, some of them will find homes. The majority of them probably won't. They'll end up at D3 if they continue playing. So
U Sports.
Yeah. So what strikes me a little bit here is you're I don't know how many players they have on their team. Let's say it's 28, 30, because they didn't have a roster cap, right? They didn't opt in. So it's a situation where you've got these 28, let's call it, student athletes. You just told them that they're in some ways, you may have just told them their hockey career was over. And that's it. It was a 5-minute meeting, and then they walked out, and that was the end of it. And I've had some parents that have reached out to me that have said, we have reached out to the school to be like, what do we do now? they're not even like aggressive with it. I've seen this. One of them forwarded me an email, and it was like, okay, my son can enter the portal, but like, what are the options? What are the steps? What do we have to do? And the response they got back was that the decision to drop the program will not change. And it's like that. The parent was like, "That's not even what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Like, do you care about my son or not?" Right? And so that I think is frustrated some of the parents for sure, which I can totally understand. And I don't think that they handled it very well with their giving day coming a few days before that. They had Tom Peffel record a video asking for donations. I had a player who was like, they told us to reach out to our family and friends and try to get donations for giving. There's no way that, I mean, again, that was Wednesday. They knew this was coming.
Right. Yeah, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like the people in whatever it's called, like advancement or like the fundraising people probably had no idea. Like when they were recording those videos and talking to those players, I doubt that they knew, but people at the administrative level knew. And they still allow that stuff to go up anyway. And it just comes across like we didn't want to make this decision until after we asked a bunch, and they're going to refund the hockey donations, I'm sure. Again, that's the least they can do. But it comes across like we didn't want anything to disrupt our donation day. So we were not going to make any decision. It was going to be business as usual until that day was done. Because, and you remember a couple years ago, they were getting some blowback. They had that issue with Carson Briere, who got in trouble at a bar. And from what I understand, like there were some donors that were upset about that. And it was right in the middle of giving day, and it did kind of disrupt things a little bit. It was a little PR blip. It wasn't the end of the world, but it comes across like they just didn't want bad PR before their big giving day. And it just comes across. Again, there's no good way to handle it, but they've handled it very poorly, in my opinion. And look, I hope that they figure out a way to bring it back, but it doesn't sound like the school's even considering it. Like even if a donor stepped up tomorrow and was like, "Hey, here's $20 million. I'm going to finance the program for the next 5 years." Like it doesn't seem like the school's even interested if that were to be the case. So,
do you foresee this being a headline that I don't want to say regular, but a headline that could become more common? Obviously, we had it with AIC. Now we've had it with Mercyhurst. And I think when we consider the kinds of schools this is happening to, there are some CCHA schools that I'm sure their fans are kind of sitting there waiting, like, is it going to be us next? Or some Atlantic schools where the funding's just not there. And it's in this era of college athletics, if you fall too far behind, maybe there's a sense of point of no return.
Yeah. So it does worry me. I think with Mercyhurst, there's a few other things to keep in mind. They went Division I in all their sports a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the added expense from that played a role, because they were in a league in Division II that was only Pennsylvania schools. And Pennsylvania is a pretty big state, right? So there was some travel there. But now they're in the NEC. They've got a lot more travel for basketball, softball, every other sport. But the other part of that is because when they went Division I, and again, I'm guessing here, it's just my opinion, I wonder if they looked at it as, well, hockey was our only Division I sport before. Like from a national marketing standpoint, like Mercyhurst hockey was our D1 sport. Now that is basketball. Like we can just make basketball our Division I sport, our headline sport at the university. And let's be honest, it costs a lot less money to run a basketball program at the low end of the Division I level than it does to run a hockey program, right? Because they're not paying their point guard $3 million a year. Right? Like they're running it. They're essentially running it like a D2. They're just but they're playing in Division I. So I think that played a role there. Like from a marketing standpoint, hockey wasn't as important when every other sport was now Division I. The thing that concerns me, and again, I don't think that this is an issue at Mercyhurst per se, because it doesn't sound like they're interested in bringing it back no matter what. When Anchorage went away and then got saved by donors, and Robert Morris went away and got saved by donors, as happy as I was to see those programs come back, and I am. I'm not trying to say like I'm not happy that those programs were saved, but that concerns me a lot, because what concerns me is that you're going to have some college presidents and some board of trustees that go, hockey's our most expensive sport that we sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's now a model of just cut it. And if the alums want to finance it, let them finance it. And that worries me a lot, that you could have some schools that go, man, we could save $2 million in our operating budget by cutting hockey. And yeah, we'll keep it as long as, a group of alums steps up and pays for it. Then yeah, we're fine keeping it. That concerns me a lot because it hasn't happened since Robert Morris. And Robert Morris was 5 years ago? I think it was 2021, 2022. Mm-hmm. So it's been a little bit. So maybe my fears are unfounded. But when those things happen back to back, and it still sits in the back of my head that, like, are there going to be presidents and board of trustees that are like, hey, we can chop this expense off and tell people we'll run a program as long as other people pay for it. That then kind of becomes a club program playing Division I hockey, right? And that scares me a little bit, because I think that there are some schools that may think that that's an easy decision and almost use it as a blueprint. And Anchorage and Robert Morris were lucky. Like, they were able to make it work. They brought their programs back. Huntsville was not lucky.
Yep.
And that's like Tennessee State. Like, Tennessee State's having trouble just getting off the ground, right? Like, that's another one. So it's definitely, at least to me, a concern, because now we're in a situation where we're talking about growing and expanding the tournament and hopefully growing the sport. And it's like every time we're losing more teams than we're adding. We've now lost 2 teams, one each in consecutive years, and we've added, Maryville. And we did add Lindenwood a few years ago, obviously. So we're kind of just from a total team standpoint, keeping our head above water. We're not not expanding, we're not growing. We're just like kind of barely hanging on to that 63, 64 team number.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, we're going to close this out here with what we usually do here. What we call them one-timers, Mike, but we'll try to motor through these as quick as we can. I know Cordell's on a little bit of a time crunch here. We got about 10 minutes here. First things first, give us your Hobie Baker hat trick finalists and maybe a dark horse who isn't getting enough love in the conversation.
I think it's Max Plant, it's Eric Polkamp, and then that third one to me is like wide open. I don't know who that third guy is going to be. I think there's a number of guys that it could be. I got to think the award goes to either Polkamp or Plant. That's what it feels like. But man, I mean, that third candidate could be anybody.
Who would you put as the third candidate?
I would probably go. This is going to be controversial considering how his weekend ended. I would probably go Trey Augustine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I think so.
Yeah, but I mean, I could be convinced of some other guys. Like, if you wanted to tell me, I know he only had half a year. I say that knowing that, like, Michael Robel may end up winning the Richter over Augustine. or honestly, like even Josh Kotai. Like, I think you could put him in the conversation if you wanted to add a goaltender in there. But
there is a precedent. I mean, Dryden McKay won the Hobie and didn't win the Richter.
That's right. Yeah. How about that? Best player in college hockey, but he wasn't the best goalie in college hockey, according to the 2 separate committees.
I think it'd be cool if Stavrov or Wittenbach got in, just with the stories behind them, like especially Stavrov, like with the season Dartmouth had, and him being like the focal point of that season in so many ways. Like, it'd be cool to, if it really is a 2-horse race in how it feels, right, between Plant and Polkamp, and to me that's feels like a coin flip in a lot of ways. Like, it seems like an opportunity where Stavrov could be that third one and be a really, really cool third one. But
where's all right, these are always fun ones. We try to reword them for folks like you and I who cover college hockey. Where's the loudest arena that you've gotten the chance to cover college hockey?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Clarkson is underrated. Clarkson is super loud.
I've heard this before.
Yeah. The fans are loud. and like the train horn is crazy, like when they score. That's fun. I think though I would say the loudest building I think I've ever been in is probably Cornell.
Yeah.
Because
Lina.
yeah, like the students go nuts, and it's not huge. Like the ceilings on the lower side, so the sound kind of bounces around.
Yep.
That's pretty. I've been there twice. I've been there once when the students were on break, and once when the students were not on break. And it was like two completely different atmospheres.
Is Lina as dark as it is on stream in person?
Yeah, it is. It's like you feel like you're in a theater where like the rink is lit, but like the stands aren't.
It's a brutal stream because it's just so dark. But most talented hockey player you've gotten the chance to cover.
So I guess I'll answer this in two parts because I've covered Merrimack forever. So I'll go with one of their guys, and then I'll go with like nationally. I think the best player overall that I've seen is a recent one. And maybe there's some recency bias there, but Celebrini. Macklin Celebrini he was off the charts that year at BU. And not many guys like do that and play in every situation, but he did. Like he was their number one penalty killer, he was their number one guy on the power play, he was their number one center, and he was their number one everything at 17 years old. And then the best Merrimack player I have seen because I covered that team obviously on a day-to-day basis, goes back a few years. He's still playing in the KHL though, and he just played in the Olympics for Team France. Stefan DaCosta. They played for Sioux City in the USHL. I think it was Sioux City and not Sioux Falls.
Was it?
But
I don't know. He
was dynamic. Like he was by far the best player that I've covered at Merrimack. He had 45 points as a freshman, had 45 points as a sophomore, and then signed with the Senators. And I'll never forget, I was telling somebody this story over the weekend. He had a game at Vermont. Merrimack was just climbing. Like they had a chance to make the NCAA tournament. It was 2011. And they were kind of sputtering towards the end of the year, and they were losing up at Vermont. They tied the game late, and then with like under a minute left, he picked up the puck behind the net and went through everybody on the ice. He got around the first forechecker, got around the second guy, got around the third guy, split the D, went down and scored with like 20 seconds left in the game. So they went from looking like they were going to lose that game to winning 3-2, and it kind of propelled them the rest of the way. And talking to him after the game, I was like, you got to walk me through that goal. Like, just what did you see on that goal? And he just went, well, I do my move. I was like, what? He goes, I just do my move. I go, your move is going through everyone on the ice? And he smiled. He goes, yeah. fair enough. I was like, yes, whatever. I do my move. Okay.
I do my move.
Oh, it's a nice move.
That's incredible.
This one might make you think a little bit. Who's the most underrated player that you've ever covered?
Most underrated player. Eamon Powell, another recent one. Eamon Powell at BC was just like, and I think it's because everybody talked about Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault and Will Smith and Cutter Gauthier. Like that, those teams were so loaded, but like Eamon Powell on defense played 26 minutes a night for that BC team.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, he was just out there all the time. And I think his level of play allowed those guys to be a little more creative offensively.
Yeah.
We'll end it with this one, and it can be any sport. It could be as a fan. It could be as on assignment. But what's the best game you've ever attended?
Best game I've ever attended. I've been thinking about this for the last hour because you told me you were going to send me this one. And it's hard. But
it's really hard.
It's really hard. And ironically enough, I'm going to go with the game that I just remember the most, that still I could kind of give you like play-by-play to how it happened. To me, that stands out. It must be the best game I ever attended because I still remember so much of it. And it was a game that my team lost, ironically enough. Game 7, 2004 NHL playoffs, Bruins, Canadiens. The Canadiens won, eliminating a Bruins team that I, at 19 years old, really thought was going to win the cup. That team had Joe Thornton, who you can see behind me.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of trades that year. Like they had Sergei Gonchar. They traded for him at the deadline. and it completely crushed me. but was a fantastic game, and one that I can, again, it's one of the few that I could like still give you. I know what I was thinking. I know where I was sitting.
Right.
I remember, like, I could still put myself in the building.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible.
College hockey game was probably, ironically enough, the same year. It was only a few. Now that I think of it, it would have been a few weeks after that game. Maine UMass Hockey's championship game. I think I went to 3 overtimes. I don't think it was 4. I think I went to 3 overtimes. Maine won. Ben Murphy scored the game-winning goal. That's probably.
Were you on deadline that night, or were you there as a fan?
I was still in school, so it was me and like
that's awesome.
Probably 4 or 5 guys that played at Merrimack at the time. We went in, just got tickets, and went and watched. And because they knew some guys on that team, so we just went and watched, and we were there for most of the night.
That's incredible.
That's awesome,
Mike. Thank you so much for joining the show. We took up way too much of your time this morning.
Oh, cool.
No, this was great. You do such great work on the newsletter. It's the easiest $8 I spend every month. So keep up the great work, and looking forward to all of CHN's coverage and your coverage from the Frozen Four next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Once again, thank you to Mike McMahon for joining the show, and thank you to our producer, Cordell Wright. To watch the show and to see clips and highlights from this episode, head on over to Midwest Sports Plus, the home of the CCHA Reporters Corner. For the audio-only version, subscribe to the CCHA Reporters Corner on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow us on Twitter at Trent Singer and at Jared Rubedo BP. You can check out our work at BemidjiPioneer.com and SiouxFallsLab.com.